It was a different exhibit. You knew that there was something special about it. Tell us a little bit about this project, this Wounded Warrior Dogs project, and how did you get started with it?
Well, first I'd say that what was interesting about the location in the Amway Grand Plaza, up on that platform with the glass chandelier above, it was almost an altar type spiritual experience for people. The hush came over people, and there was a lot of tears and emotions that went with that show as well. I have been concerned for years with our volunteer soldiers and the veterans who have come home with extended injuries that would probably would have died from in the Vietnam War, just because we had better triage and medical care in the field. At the same time, we had trouble with the VA, which was a lot of negative information on the VA coming out. And I wanted to do something which would have people remember that we had young men and women who gave their lives and life and limb on our behalf, and I wanted to keep their image somehow in the forefront. And sometimes we become hardened by looking at people, and I've told stories with dogs. So the dog allegory, as man's best friend, they have the goods on us, and they kind of tell stories on us as much as about us. So it was time for me to bring out the Wounded Warrior Dogs, and not only that, the dog is an integral part of the military today, the military working dog. And what better, what stronger bond is it? There is no other stronger bond than the dog and the handler in the field, and the things that they suffer together and experience together. And so it's also, I would say, it's about that bond between the soldier and the dog as well, but it's also about the soldier primarily.
So how long have you been working with woods and this type of art form?
I've been carving animal allegory, telling stories through animals, various kinds of animals, since 1985. I've been carving since 1976, though. That's when I started working with wood. And the Wounded Warrior Dogs project began in 2015. And so the dogs that were at Art Prize were done over a 2-year period. And now I'm thinking about another series. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to go, but the first dog in the next series is going to be on display here, and that's going to be the dog, because I did not have a dog representing depression. And so many people said, well, what about PTSD? And how do you show PTSD of the injuries on the inside rather than the outside? So I've expressed it by two doves facing each other. One's a black dove, one's a white dove, sort of a bipolar face-off on the back of the dog. And being on the back of the dog says flashback. That's a perfect title for the piece, so it's going to be titled Flashback.
That's amazing. And like I say, just seeing these, they just give you a different sense. It's just, there's something different. You can see the emotion that's in it. And like you said, when you were at Art Prize, seeing people, the way that it pulled emotion out of these viewers.
Listen, I'll tell you, since Art Prize, I have met so many people. I mean, a young man who lost his leg in Afghanistan from an IED, and he was standing right beside the very dog that was telling his story at the Ohio Craft Museum, where the dog set a record attendance for that museum over a 2-month period. And his in-laws said that evening he came home, and he had opened up, and he talked about how it happened for the very first time. He had not been able to talk about it before.
Wow.
So another woman had taken her grandfather to see the exhibition. And it wasn't until he had seen the exhibition that they learned that he had been in World War II. They didn't even know he was in World War II.
Really?
So the success of this piece, and I tear up every time I think about this, the success of this piece is the unopening the wounds and healing that's taking place.
It's something. It's definitely something special. And so there's probably a lot of time where a lot of thought process of putting, how do you put it? I would say a lot of care into choosing how you're going to portray the dogs. Like, bring us a little bit through like that process, from like the woods, like choosing the woods, to like how long does it take you to do these? Like, what's the process?
Yeah, I noticed that there are particular breeds were used were favored in different wars. For example, in the South Pacific, it was the Doberman. And in Vietnam, it was the German Shepherds. By the way, the first time the veterans saw the German Shepherds, I had taken the first 3 dogs down to the Vietnam Dog Handlers Association, who has since made me an honorary member of their group. I'm not a veteran,
cool, right.
but they made me an honorary member of their group, and that was such an honor, because they're so appreciative of the story of letting people know. A lot of people didn't even know they were using the dogs in the military. So I had to do a German Shepherd, of course, for the Vietnam era, and then the Belgian Malinois, which is a lighter, faster dog. It's more agile, doesn't have the hip dysplasia problems. You see them holstered to the sides of the soldier, jumping out of airplanes with them, wearing little goggles, earmuffs, everything, that's a very agile dog. The movie Max, for example, that was out. That movie came out a month after I had done my first Belgian Malinois.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so it was like, it's almost, prophetic in a way.
Sure.
That the timing of this group of things that came out. So for the Iraq and Afghanistan, it was the Belgian Malinois, even though the German Shepherd continues to be used as well in these. Okay, so then the color of the wood. Okay, well, what color of the wood? I'm using the wood that's going to be really. Oh, I did a bomb sniffing. I have to tell you this story, a bomb sniffing chocolate lab. I said, why did I do a bomb sniffing chocolate lab other than the fact that I wanted to have a variety of color? I did it in walnut, so it's a chocolate lab.
Sure.
I did a research, and it turns out I must have, in the back of my mind, remembered the story about Jason Boss, whose dog Cece had been brought back, and down there I met Jason Boss and his mother, and they came down, and because I had made mention of the fact that it was loosely related to his story as well, getting Cece back and having him home. So the stories, people said, well, were these actual dogs? I said, no, they're more representative of stories that I've heard, composite stories. But I'm just giving you a warning now. If I do a new group, I think I'm going to be doing specific heroes.
Right.
And then you have the problem, well, how do I choose? How do I make that choice? So there's going to be some research involved because I don't want to lose the application to every dog and every man. That's the thing, the sacrifices that have been made. And that's why I kept it pretty general at the beginning. But ironically, I met every character in my story. They've come to the opening. From the flight attendant that says, for Delta Airlines, she said, in regards to the casket, she says, I bring the bodies home.
Wow. Jeez, that's heavy. So now, moving forward, you do your art prize exhibit, and you put it out there. Was there, because I'm sure before that, you had kind of given a little bit of exhibition to these things?
I had 3 of them at the state fair, and it totally overlooked by the jurors. And I should say, from the juror standpoint, I don't know what about the art establishment. I don't know. I have my MFA. I have a terminal degree in the fine arts, and yet I sometimes look at my art establishment and I wonder where they have their heads sometimes. The critics came in from Art Prize when they made the final 20, and they were why these pieces? They had this little TV program, and I don't think neither of the 3 critics liked it. And one of the they thought it was about the dogs. They couldn't see allegory. They didn't understand allegory. And they said, well, I'm sure there's some dogs in Fallujah that are hurting pretty badly right now.
Wow, really?
And then they said the problem was that they had the dogs were too much about America. So you see what I'm dealing with sometimes in the contemporary art field, politically.
Yeah.
This was not intended to be a political piece, and I had no idea what the response was going to be, and they tried to make comparisons between the juror selection and the people selection. Politically, they tried to make some comparisons between the two, and it just means so much. It means so much more to me to have been selected by out of 400,000 people than 3 jurors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It was a populist uprising, you might say.
Yeah, it's the what would you call it? The underdog, if you will.
Yeah.
You're up against everybody who sits there and it says that they know art and they breathe art and they live art,
That's right.
as opposed to the people who actually who they were created for,
And
people who were
there were
there.
plenty of fine pieces there, but what I didn't realize, what I was walking into was a perfect storm. There were three things going on. One was woodworkers, and they recognized the quality in the show, dog lovers, and patriots, and the veterans. So it was everything came together. And one of my former students who happened to be the venue manager at Monroe Community Church said, I think you're going to win. I had a woman come in second day here. She said, I have been to every art prize and I've chosen the winner every time, and you, sir, are the winner.
That's amazing.
I did not want to believe her because I'm a fatalist sometimes. I didn't want to jinx myself.
Right.
So I just kept being there and presenting and talking to people without that in mind, that just because I wanted to meet the people. But the soldiers' response, the veterans' response, it was just so touching and overwhelming. This was the first time I had been with the work and listened to, a lot of artists, they don't want to be around because they don't want to hear what people are saying about their work. Well, I was forced like 10 hours a day for 20 days or however long this lasted. And I'm listening to everybody's responses. And they actually made me put out 3 boxes of Kleenex. And people beginning to complain about that. I did not expect that. Listen, some people, the distractors would have said, it was too emotional. There was one review, one interview who said that, we were trying to get rid of the emotion. Well, what is art but emotion? And you're going to have emotion one way or the other. And I would rather have the emotion for some cause that means something. And but it was a great experience being there. People say, I'm sure you're tired of hearing this. Oh no, I'm not. This actually keeps me going.
Yeah, absolutely does. So moving forward, after you find out that you win art prize, then it had to have been something that was like just this crazy amount of people where the recognition comes in. How do you prepare yourself for something like that? Like all of a sudden you go from just going, hey, well, I brought
my wife at the awards ceremony, I mentioned my wife, which was the political thing to do. It was the right thing to do, and to give her credit for being the woman beneath my wings.
Sure.
Right, because she really was, as far as as an artist. She was a medical technologist. She had given her lifetime to the field and was on her feet all day. And I told her halfway, before, probably the last week, I said, dear, I think if I win, I think you can retire. And she retired.
Wow, that's awesome.
So she was able to get off her feet. And then with then it was sort of a whirlwind of national exposure. And when I got home, all of the Columbus, the TV stations, the WOSU, PBS, and they finally they did stories as well. And now my main goal is to get these dogs acquired in a National Veterans Museum. And I promised so many veterans that because they said, I tell you, what's humbling for a family to come up to me and say, we have not had this emotion since we visited the wall.
Wow.
I know, and
that's
I am, come on, they're dogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've been to the wall, and I've had tears at the wall as I rubbed the names of my 6 classmates who did not return. So, yeah, this has just been. It was something I wasn't expecting. It's humbling at the same time, and it's I'm a survivor of a quad bypass and open heart surgery in 2009, and to keep overtime, and I run all these touchdowns in overtime,
Yeah.
So it's been great.
So this year with our prize, did they have you back to do some?
Yes, they had me back, but they did not have room for all 7 dogs. So we have 3 dogs that are down there at the hub right now. And then so after art prize, I go out for a veterans event at Greenville University in Southern Illinois, where we hope to bring out the veterans from the St. Louis area. And then I go to Washington, D.C. for an interview at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. I think they're going to want to have the dogs there. We're going to work out something there as well. And then in the spring, I'll be at the Southern Ohio Museum down in Portsmouth, Ohio. So I'm slowly working my way out of Ohio and trying to get to the East Coast if I can. I said, you guys have seen it all. Come on, I want to spread this love around a little bit somehow.
So you have 7 dogs in the pack right now.
7 dogs.
And and you have the PTSD dog. So when do you finally stop and go, okay, that's enough. I've made enough. Or is there a point where you stop?
No, I don't think so, because I think the next group, I can have 2 groups, 2 messengers, 2 groups of messengers going out in different directions.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think the next group is going to be real heroes, actual heroes. I had a friend, she already beat me to doing Batang, who was the last surviving dog from the 9/11, rescue dog. It was a golden retriever, which is fine with me because I hate doing golden retrievers because all that hair is.
Oh yeah.
I love very skinny dog with short hair because it shows all the muscle structure.
Right.
I love like the Doberman that's in the show here. No, I had another medic. Another medic came, a touching story. I think I have to do it. It's going to be a dog named Jajo. They pronounce it Zazo. Tuco. He has his own webpage. They're doing some fundraising right now. But yeah, he was in Afghanistan. They had reports on an IED, and he and his handler. And by the way, this is where I learned that the dog always outranks the handler. So not that the handler would ever hit the dog, but it says he can't strike the dog as long as the dog outranks it. So it was a PFC handler and a corporal handler, perhaps, and a sergeant dog. So anyway, Sergeant Zazo, that would be his name, had detected an IED, and someone set the IED off remotely, and it impacted both the dog and his handler. And his handler had several, brain, like Wounded Warrior Dog #1 that I did. The depiction of the plate in the head, eye missing.
Right.
That was that story, and the dog took a lot of shrapnel as well. So all 4 dogs come into the field hospital, and as the doctor tells me, he says, "We have 3 soldiers and a dog," and the doctor says, "No, we have 4 soldiers."
Wow.
And that's
cool.
exactly that way that dog was treated as a casualty, as a soldier casualty.
Wow.
And so I think I'm going to be doing that German Shepherd at the point of impact. I think the next dogs, some of the dogs are going to be action in the field, rappelling, walking across bridges, things like that.
I like it.
The dogs in action.
So something a little bit less
Which
symbolic.
means I will have even less storage space in my basement.
Right? That was going to be my next question. How do you store all these?
Everything's in form-fitting crates.
Yeah? Yeah, because I was going to say,
for
it's
easily travel. But
made
this-
out of wood and such.
That way I don't have to wrap them every time.
Right.
It's perfect that way too.
That's an amazing story. It's so cool. And just the
You know,
place of
I have been
people.
blessed at this age, at my age right now, and the way things have let loose right at the end. I would say, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'd want it coming any earlier, because right now, even as in my fourth quarter, I would have to say I'm a lot more focused.
Yeah.
I have less things distracting me, if you know what I mean.
Right. I mean, your wife finally got to come home too, which, you can go out and enjoy some things now that she's...
I'm not sure how much she likes that. I think there are times, retired couples understand what I'm saying, It doesn't always turn out to be the way that you want it to be.
You have all these dreams of what retirement's going to be like. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this portion of it. But did she get to come on the road with you and such?
Oh, yes.
Great. So
Yeah.
you get to travel.
She loves traveling with me.
Bless her heart. Goodness. So the exhibit is going to be going on here at right in Big Rapids. Salute to the veterans, and this starts September 29th at Artworks, right downtown Big Rapids, and you can go and check this out. And what an awesome exhibit this is going to be. If you know anybody who is affected by any type of veterans or even people who you just love this sort of thing in your military, and you just love the patriotic sense of this. This is